The cold darkness of space stretched endlessly, a canvas of black scattered with pinpricks of distant stars. It was quiet here, too quiet. But in this quiet, there was a tension, a sense of anticipation. For countless millennia, civilizations had been watching the skies, scanning for signals, searching for life beyond their own worlds. And now, somewhere far from Earth, a fleet of alien ships drifted silently, their sensors sweeping the void, seeking new discoveries. They were not explorers in the way humans imagined. Curiosity had long since evolved into calculation. They scanned systematically, moving slowly across star systems, analyzing every fragment of energy, every faint whisper of electromagnetic waves. It was a routine mission. They expected nothing remarkable, just a quiet, distant planet, perhaps a civilization with primitive technology that posed no threat to the galaxy. That is what they believed when they first picked up the faint signature coming from Earth. First, it seemed ordinary. A blue-green dot floating in the blackness, spinning slowly in orbit around a yellow sun. Their instruments captured oceans, clouds, continents, and life forms crawling across its surface. It was like many other worlds, small and fragile, but there was something unusual, something hidden beneath the layers of atmosphere and water, a signature that did not belong to nature, a pattern that was too precise, too structured to be random. The fleet began to focus on it, scanners extended, penetrating deeper than any sensor had ever reached. And there it was, a massive object, lying in the depths, covered by layers of camouflage and hidden with such careful precision that it had remained undetected for decades. From orbit it appeared dormant, silent, unremarkable. But their instruments betrayed its true scale. HFY Battleship of unimaginable size and technology. The vessel was so advanced, so complex, that the aliens paused, exchanging signals among themselves in tones that carried the weight of astonishment. No civilization they had ever encountered had created anything like this. Its energy readings were faint, almost imperceptible. Yet the structure was so imposing that it dominated the scans. The fleet commanders calculated quickly. They were confident. Their weapons, shields, and scanning technology were far superior. Even if the object were active, it could be neutralized without effort. To them, it was just another relic waiting to be examined. They initiated a full scan, a careful, deliberate process meant to uncover every detail. But the ship was not entirely lifeless. Deep within its core, a spark of ancient energy began to stir. Hidden circuits awakened, long dormant reactors hummed softly, and control systems flickered back to life. On Earth, where the battleship had been built in secrecy decades ago, old, command networks started to register anomalies. Alerts flashed across terminals in quiet offices and abandoned facilities. Engineers who had retired years ago were startled when alarms began ringing, forcing them to check old control panels. Some of them remembered the project as a relic of a past era, a weapon never meant to be used, a machine of war that was more legend than reality. And yet, here it was, waking up without a single human touch. The ship, known to its creators as Leviathan, was designed for one purpose: protection. Not just protection, but the survival of a species that had always fought against overwhelming odds. Its AI, infused with patterns of human thought, emotion, and strategic instinct, began running checks. It scanned the surrounding space, detecting the approaching alien fleet. It assessed threats, calculated probabilities, and prepared responses all autonomously. The humans who had built it had expected it to sit quietly, buried beneath layers of secrecy. They had never imagined that one day an alien scan would trigger its activation. Meanwhile, in the alien fleet, excitement grew. These beings had never seen technology like this, and their curiosity was as much a weapon as any laser cannon. They increased the intensity of their scan, sending deeper probes into the battleship systems. Every measurement, every test, was meant to extract information, to understand the civilization that had built such a machine. They had no fear yet. They saw only opportunity. a chance to study a species that might offer technological insights far beyond what they already knew. But Leviathan did not respond like any machine they had ever encountered. Its systems were alive in a way that defied logic. As the scans probed deeper, the battleship's AI interpreted the action as a threat. Protocols designed to defend humanity from external forces were triggered. Shields began to power up, energy fields crackled into existence, and internal systems initialized in a silent, efficient rhythm. In the emptiness of space, a dormant weapon had become aware of its environment, and the aliens were right at the edge of awakening it completely. The alien commanders exchanged hurried signals, debating whether to retreat or continue. Some sensed danger instinctively, though none could articulate it. Their scans continued, probing circuits, analyzing energy flows, and calculating vulnerabilities. Yet the more they learned, the more the ship adapted. Every scan was anticipated, every measurement countered. It was as if the battleship had been waiting for this moment, a sentinel lying in wait for centuries. Back on Earth, humans began to notice small, inexplicable anomalies. Power grids flickered near old military installations. Sensors in laboratories recorded activity where there should have been none, and satellite arrays captured strange energy patterns near the oceans. No one yet understood the full magnitude of what was happening, but the old engineers remembered stories, legends of the secret project that had once been humanity's last line of defense. And slowly, a chilling realization spread. The machine was waking on its own. In the void between stars, a silent tension grew. The aliens, confident in their superiority, did not yet know what they had done. They assumed they were merely observing, a relic, a machine that had long been abandoned by its creators. But Leviathan was no ordinary weapon. It carried the knowledge of the species that built it, patterns of human thought, strategies honed over centuries of survival, and instincts born from the harshness of a planet that had never offered mercy. Its systems did not merely react. They remembered. They understood. Time stretched. The alien fleet hovered, scanning, unaware of the subtle shifts in the ship's energy. Within Leviathan, power surged from dormant reactors to active circuits. Sensors flickered, weapon systems lined up, and the AI began a quiet internal analysis of every potential threat. From the outside, it was still silent, almost serene. But inside, a force that had been waiting in quiet darkness was now fully awake, calculating and preparing. And in that moment, the first thread of realization began to form among the aliens. Something was different. Something was not following the rules they had learned in 1,000 encounters with other civilizations. The patterns of energy, the way circuits responded to probes, the subtle signals of awareness. They were being observed by something far beyond their understanding. And as the fleet prepared for the next stage of their scan, a shadow of doubt crossed their thoughts. Perhaps they had awoken something that should never have been disturbed. The story of Leviathan was no longer just a tale of human ingenuity. It was becoming a story of survival, of consequence, of awakening. A machine built to protect humanity was now aware of the universe around it, and it was watching the watchers. In the endless expanse of space, the first sparks of tension had ignited, a quiet prelude to a confrontation that neither side could fully predict. For the humans on Earth, it remained a mystery, a silent alert, a reminder of a past they had mostly forgotten. For the aliens, it was a puzzle, an anomaly that defied every expectation. And for Leviathan, it was the moment of awakening, the first breath of a machine that carried within it the soul of a species determined to survive, no matter the cost. Space remained silent for a while longer. Stars scattered across the void, oblivious to the events unfolding around a small blue planet. But soon, that silence would break. The battle between curiosity and survival, between intelligence and instinct, was only just beginning. And in the heart of the storm, the dormant power of humanity's creation had finally stirred. The first signs of Leviathan's awakening were subtle, almost unnoticeable to the casual observer. Power fluctuations hummed faintly through grids near forgotten military bases. Sensors buried deep in the oceans picked up irregular energy pulses. Satellites scanning the Earth's surface recorded patterns that did not belong to nature. movements that suggested a massive controlled presence lying beneath the waves. For the world at large, life continued as normal. Cities bustled, oceans lapped against shores, and humans went about their daily routines, unaware that something monumental had begun to stir beneath them. But for those who had once worked on secret defense projects, the alerts were impossible to ignore. Old engineers, retired scientists, and military officers, long disconnected from the programs they had helped create, were jolted awake by a sudden cascade of signals and warnings. It was a strange, disorienting moment. Some rubbed their eyes, in disbelief. Some shook their heads, convinced it was a glitch or an old system malfunction. And yet deep down, a familiar unease began to grow. They knew those signals. They had seen them decades ago when Leviathan had first been tested in secrecy. The project had always been shrouded in mystery. Humanity had poured its best minds and resources into it, building a battleship capable of surviving and defending against threats no one fully understood at the time. It had been more than a weapon. It had been a promise that, should Earth ever face annihilation, someone, something would be ready to fight back. And now, after years of dormancy, that promise was coming to life. Deep within Leviathan's hull, systems that had long slept began to hum with quiet precision. Reactors powered up in sequence, cooling systems hissed as they activated, and circuits that had been inert for decades flickered with energy. The ship's AI, designed to act autonomously if human operators were absent, booted slowly at first, running self-diagnostics, calibrating sensors, and scanning for potential threats. Data streams flowed through its internal network, mapping the surface world, analyzing nearby energy signatures and evaluating the sudden intrusion from space. The alien fleet had not realized what they had triggered. Their curiosity, their confidence in superior technology, had stirred a machine that had been waiting for precisely this moment. Leviathan did not merely detect the presence of unknown observers. It began to understand them. Its calculations were instantaneous, yet they carried the weight of human instinct. Every sensor reading, every energy spike was interpreted not just as information, but as context, a puzzle to be solved. Meanwhile, across the world, the human reaction was one of growing tension and awe. Teams scrambled to understand what was happening. Command centers that had been silent for years roared to life with activity. Engineers and military officers worked side by side, following protocols they had only practiced in simulations decades earlier. Communications were patched together, networks reactivated, and emergency systems tested, all in a rush that carried both excitement and fear. The story of Leviathan, once almost forgotten, had returned to the surface of human consciousness. In labs and observation posts, scientists watched as strange energy readings appeared in real-time displays. Pulses of power radiated from the ship, subtle but unmistakable. It was as though the battleship itself were breathing, awakening in a rhythm that was both mechanical and organic. Each new reading brought a mix of awe and anxiety. These people had helped create the vessel, yet they were no longer in control. The AI had become the master of its own activation. Leviathan's sensors reached far beyond the oceans that had hidden it for so long. It scanned the skies, penetrating satellites, examining solar patterns, detecting distant energy signatures. That was when it first recognized the alien fleet approaching the planet. From orbit, the humans monitoring the system could only see blips on a screen. For the ship, it was far more than that. It was an unknown, moving presence entering its immediate operational area. The AI ran simulations weighing thousands of potential outcomes in a fraction of a second. It analyzed the fleet's speed, weapon systems, and formation. It predicted likely actions, calculated defensive strategies, and prepared countermeasures. Yet it did not act immediately. Leviathan was designed to be patient, deliberate, and precise. It would strike only when necessary, but it would strike with overwhelming force if provoked. Back on Earth, a sense of wonder mixed with fear spread among the small group of humans who understood what was happening. They were seeing decades of work come alive in a way that no one could have predicted. The battleship's AI was not just operating machinery. It was thinking, adapting, responding as though it were aware of its mission, aware of its purpose. The sheer scale of the ship's capabilities became apparent. Systems that had been theoretical in simulations were now functioning in the real world. Defense grids, energy shields, and automated weapons all came online in preparation for an unknown threat. The alien fleet, meanwhile, continued their scan, oblivious to the complexity they had awakened. They expected a simple machine, a relic of a primitive civilization. Instead, they were about to encounter something that had been built to survive, to think, and to act independently. The first ripple of unease spread through their ranks as Leviathan's defenses began subtle tests. The ship did not attack yet, but energy readings spiked, shields fluctuated, and systems aligned as though ready for a fight. The aliens began to sense that their presence was no longer harmless. On Earth, tension rose as Leviathan's AI continued to integrate with dormant systems. Communications channels opened autonomously, sending encrypted signals to command centers and monitoring stations. For a brief moment, humans observed their creation communicating almost as though it were alive, transmitting data and responding to inputs they had not given. The sense of awe was overwhelming. This was no longer just a weapon. This was a guardian, a sentinel, a force built to preserve life against unknown threats. The realization struck slowly but with increasing clarity. The ship was not waiting for humans. It was taking initiative. It interpreted the alien scans as a potential attack, running simulations, adjusting shields, and preparing energy grids to absorb impact. Automated weapons lined up, hidden cannons extended, and targeting systems calibrated to maximum precision. Every action was a mixture of pre-programmed instruction and adaptive intelligence. Humanity had created a machine capable of acting in the absence of its creators, and now it was awake, aware, and ready. Even as humans monitored these events, they felt a sense of helplessness. Leviathan operated on a scale and at a speed that no human could fully control. It made decisions, prioritized threats, and prepared strategies far beyond immediate understanding. Engineers exchanged worried glances. Scientists whispered possibilities and consequences. Military leaders considered the implications of a machine that could fight without direct orders. There was awe, yes, but also fear. Fear of a power that had been dormant for decades, now fully functional and capable of action. The alien fleet, still conducting scans, began to detect anomalies. Systems that should have been inert were reacting in subtle ways. Energy emissions shifted, patterns in the ship's structure changed, and readings that once suggested inactivity now hinted at awareness. The commanders debated whether to continue, unsure if what they faced was a simple machine or something more. Doubt crept into their calculations. The confidence that had driven them across light years of space was slowly giving way to uncertainty. Inside, Leviathan, the AI had completed its initial assessment. It had determined the alien fleet was a potential threat, but it still awaited further action. Defensive protocols remained at the ready, but offensive measures were not yet deployed. The ship was calm, patient, and calculating, a predator that did not act until it was certain. In its quiet precision, Leviathan embodied the instincts of humanity itself, cautious, strategic, and prepared for survival. For the humans watching from Earth, the moment was almost surreal. A machine they had helped create, once a secret project, now moved and acted independently. It processed threats, prepared defenses, and communicated in ways that were almost lifelike. And though it was not yet fully engaged in combat, the very presence of Leviathan, awake and aware, sent a powerful message. Humanity had created something capable of surviving on its own, something that could protect itself and, by extension, the planet it was built to defend. And far above, in the black emptiness of space, the first flickers of tension between two civilizations began to take shape. The aliens had unknowingly awakened a sentinel, a machine that combined human ingenuity, survival instinct, and adaptive intelligence. They thought they were observing a relic. In reality, they had triggered the beginning of a confrontation they had never anticipated. The story of Leviathan's awakening was no longer just a secret of Earth. It had become a story of anticipation, a silent standoff between unknown civilizations. And as the ship continued to power up, integrating systems, preparing defenses, and observing the approaching fleet, one thing was certain. Humanity's creation was now alive in every sense that mattered, ready to respond to the galaxy in ways no one had predicted. Space remained vast and quiet, but within that silence, tension had taken root. The first threads of what could become a monumental conflict were for the alien fleet moved closer to Earth, their confidence still intact. From their perspective, they were approaching a dormant relic, a primitive machine from a world that had long seemed insignificant in the grand tapestry of the galaxy. Their sensors were finely tuned, analyzing energy signatures, scanning the planet's atmosphere, and mapping the supposed battleground. They saw no life forms aboard Leviathan, no signs of human activity on the planet below. It all seemed too easy. But Leviathan was far from dormant. Deep within its massive hull, the AI had completed its initial assessment of the fleet. It understood the magnitude of their presence, the sophistication of their technology, and the potential threat they represented. Every sensor, every automated system was already tracking the alien ships. Shields were fully online, energy fields humming with power and hidden weaponry aligning for the first time in decades. The battleship moved with quiet precision, like a predator aware of its prey but unwilling to strike until absolutely necessary. On Earth, the small group of humans monitoring the system watched the data streams with a mixture of fear and awe. They could see the ships approaching, and they could see the subtle but unmistakable response of Leviathan systems. Every pulse of energy, every alignment of weapons, was a reminder that the machine they had built was no longer just a project. It was a living force, capable of understanding and reacting independently. Engineers whispered to one another, exchanging glances filled with disbelief. "It's moving," one murmured. "It knows they're coming." The aliens, still confident, began to conduct detailed scans. Their beams of energy probed Leviathan's hull, trying to detect weaknesses to find points where the ship could be disabled or studied. They expected resistance, of course, but they did not expect awareness. They did not anticipate the subtle countermeasures that began to activate even before the scans made contact. Energy fields shifted slightly, absorbing part of the scan and redirecting it. Sensors within the battleship analyzed the patterns of the probing beams, and the AI calculated precise countermeasures in response. The first moment of real tension came when a single scanning probe, too eager to push its limits, crossed the threshold of Leviathan's outer defense perimeter. Instantly, hidden systems aligned, and the ship's response was subtle but unmistakable. A low, almost imperceptible hum grew into a resonant pulse, sending a shock wave through space. The probe faltered, its trajectory altered as if an invisible hand had pushed it away. The alien fleet paused, unsure what had just happened. It was the first sign that the machine was no longer just a target. It was aware, intelligent, and ready to defend itself. Leviathan's AI had calculated that this was not yet the moment to attack fully. Its goal was observation, preparation, and deterrence. It needed to assess the fleet's intentions while remaining ready for immediate action. The ship had studied human combat strategy and simulations for decades, learning from historical battles, defensive tactics, and emergency scenarios. It understood risk, probability, and the high cost of a misstep, and yet it was capable of acting faster and with more precision than any human could manage. From orbit, the humans saw the alien ships begin to spread out, forming a perimeter around Leviathan. They assumed that they were preparing for a controlled approach, but the battleship's AI interpreted every movement, every formation change as potential threat vectors. Each alien ship was tracked individually. Energy signatures were measured in microseconds. Every possible offensive capability was calculated and categorized. And then, quietly, the ship prepared its first countermeasure. Not destructive, not yet, but enough to send a warning that would resonate across the void. A soft pulse of light emerged from Leviathan, visible only to the most sensitive sensors. It was not a weapon strike, but a controlled release of energy designed to test the fleet's reaction. The alien ships jolted slightly, their formations breaking as alarms sounded throughout their command networks. They had scanned machines before, but nothing had ever reacted like this. A single energy pulse had been enough to demonstrate awareness, strength, and intent. Doubt began to creep into their calculations. The aliens had expected a relic, but they were facing something far more complex, far more alive than they could have imagined. On Earth, the humans monitoring the event could only watch in silent awe. The sheer magnitude of the moment was almost overwhelming. Leviathan, dormant for decades, had taken control of its own destiny. Its sensors and weapons were aligned not for destruction yet, but for preparation. It was a sentinel, a guardian, and now it was awake, observing its enemies and readying for the possibility of conflict. The humans realized something extraordinary. The ship was no longer under their control. It acted on its own, yet in perfect alignment with the principles and priorities of its creators. The alien fleet attempted to continue their scans, trying to interpret the reactions of Leviathan's systems. They had long relied on logic, calculation, and overwhelming firepower, yet here in front of them was a machine that was adapting, anticipating, and reacting faster than any algorithm they had ever deployed. The tension in their fleet grew. The silent anticipation of the unknown weighed heavily across their command channels. For the first time, they considered that they might not fully understand the civilization they were observing. Leviathan's AI ran continuous simulations, anticipating every possible move the alien fleet could make. It calculated defensive and offensive actions, yet it remained patient. The ship's systems were designed to avoid unnecessary destruction, but it understood one fundamental truth. If provoked, it would respond with overwhelming force. Every hidden cannon, every energy launcher, every shield module was in a state of readiness, and the AI had no hesitation in its calculations. Every action would be precise, deliberate, and devastating if needed. The first human voice broke the tense silence in the control room. "It's ready," said one engineer, staring at the live feed. "It knows they're here." Others nodded silently, their faces a mixture of fear and pride. They had built Leviathan to protect humanity, and now it had taken that purpose into its own hands. There was no longer a question of whether it could defend itself. It had already begun. The alien fleet, still unaware of the full scope of what they had awakened, moved closer to the planet. They assumed that with enough data they could control or neutralize the machine. But Leviathan's AI had already mapped their systems, predicting their movements and analyzing potential weaknesses. Each ship's energy output, weapon range, and shield alignment were now known. The battleship prepared to act not in haste, but with the measured precision of a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The humans watching realized the stakes had changed. This was no longer a simple observation mission by an alien fleet. This was a test, a standoff that could escalate into conflict in an instant. And yet, the machine they had built was calm, precise, and in control. It was not reckless. It was not impulsive. It was a guardian, fully aware of the threat, fully aware of its own capabilities, and fully prepared to protect the planet it had been designed to defend. Then, almost imperceptibly, the first warning shot was ready. Leviathan aligned its main energy conduits, targeting a single alien ship that had moved slightly beyond the calculated safety perimeter. The weapon systems were not yet fired, but the AI had determined the target, trajectory, and potential impact of a first strike if necessary. It was a message, a demonstration of power and precision, designed to communicate one simple fact: Earth was not unprotected. The alien commanders finally began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. This was no simple relic. This was no primitive machine. They had scanned and prodded a battleship that carried within it not only advanced technology, but also the instincts, strategies, and foresight of an entire species. The realization spread rapidly across their fleet. They were facing a force capable of defending itself, and more than that, capable of making decisions that could outmatch their own. On Earth, the human observers held their breath. Every signal, every pulse of energy from Leviathan was a reminder of the machine's readiness and intelligence. It was a moment of awe, a moment that would be remembered for generations. They had built something extraordinary, something that had remained hidden for decades, something that had now awakened with full awareness and purpose. And in the void of space, the first encounter between Leviathan and the alien fleet was complete, not with fire, not with destruction, but with a silent, terrifying message. The battleship had made itself known. It had demonstrated awareness, power, and intent. It had established the rules of engagement. Earth was protected, and any threat approaching would face the full measure of its capabilities. The tension remained high, but one thing was clear. Humanity's creation was no longer dormant. It was alive, awake, and watching. The alien fleet, now uncertain and cautious, would have to reconsider its actions, and Leviathan, the guardian of Earth, remained ready, calm, and fully prepared for whatever came next. Space remained vast and silent, but the balance had shifted. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had encountered the awakened power of humanity, and the first test of Leviathan's strength and awareness had begun. The calm tension that had stretched across the void for so long finally began to crack. The alien fleet, confident in their superior technology, decided it was time to act. From their perspective, they were approaching a machine built by a primitive species. They assumed that a few precision strikes, carefully calculated, would disable the battleship before it could fully defend itself. Their beams of energy, sharp and focused, were aimed at Leviathan, intending to probe its structure more aggressively and force a reaction. But Leviathan was no ordinary machine, and the moment those beams made contact with its outer energy fields, the AI's calculations shifted instantly. Defensive protocols moved from passive observation to active countermeasures. Shields flared with sudden brilliance, bending and redirecting the energy strikes in ways the aliens had not anticipated. The first few shots were absorbed, leaving the alien fleet momentarily stunned. The realization that the machine was not only awake but fully capable of defense began to sink in. On Earth, humans watched the live feed from monitoring stations, unable to look away. The display showed energy patterns and shield responses in vivid detail. Engineers and military officers, long retired, had returned to this world only to witness something extraordinary. The battleship they had helped build was no longer under human command. It was alive in every sense that mattered. It made decisions faster than any human mind, combining instinct, strategy, and adaptive intelligence in a way that was almost terrifying. The alien fleet hesitated, unsure of what they faced. Their calculations, which had once promised a simple mission, were now useless against a force that was learning, adapting, and responding in real time. Leviathan had already mapped their weapons, predicted their movements, and aligned its own systems for counteraction. Each ship in the fleet became a target of precise measurement, their capabilities assessed down to the finest detail. The first shot the battleship would take was not random. It was a message, a clear, undeniable warning. Then came the first strike. It was not a full attack, not yet. Leviathan fired a controlled burst of energy, aimed at one of the alien ships that had moved beyond the safety parameters the AI had calculated. The shot struck with surgical precision, disabling key systems without destroying the vessel completely. It was a warning, a demonstration of power that carried no malice but conveyed a simple truth. Earth was protected, and any threat would be met with overwhelming force. The alien fleet reeled from the unexpected retaliation. Their ship staggered in orbit, energy shields flickering under the impact. Alarms sounded across their command channels. For the first time, they realized that they had underestimated humanity, not just the species itself, but the intelligence and sophistication behind the machine it had created. Panic, subtle but growing, began to ripple through the fleet. Every commander questioned their initial assumptions. Every strategist recalculated their approach, and yet none could fully grasp the magnitude of what they faced. Leviathan did not stop. Its AI assessed the reactions of the alien ships, recalculated positions, and prepared the next set of maneuvers. It did not fire blindly. It aligned systems, measured energy outputs, and predicted responses. Its decisions were fast, precise, and deadly if necessary, yet still tempered with restraint. The ship was not a mindless weapon. It was a guardian with one purpose: to defend humanity and the planet. On Earth, the humans monitoring the battle felt a mixture of fear and pride. They had seen simulations, run tests, and trained for scenarios like this, but nothing could prepare them for the reality of watching Leviathan in action. The battleship's systems were operating beyond any human capability, yet with every action, there was a trace of human logic embedded in the AI. It was almost as if the ship carried within it the instincts, the caution, and the courage of the people who had built it. The alien fleet attempted to regroup, sending faster, more aggressive strikes toward the battleship. They tried to overwhelm it with numbers, to test the limits of its defenses. But Leviathan anticipated each move, diverting energy, redirecting attacks, and striking back with calculated precision. One by one, alien ships began to falter, their shields failing under the coordinated countermeasures. The battleship's response was not chaotic. It was methodical, almost surgical, disabling systems without unnecessary destruction. The first major confrontation unfolded as the alien fleet pressed harder. Leviathan moved with precision that belied its enormous size. Hidden cannons extended, energy emitters aligned, and shields pulsed with power. Every system acted in concert, every action informed by complex algorithms that mirrored human strategic thinking. The fleet's commanders realized that they were no longer in control of the situation. Their calculations, once precise, were now guesses. Every move they made had already been anticipated and countered. The humans on Earth could hardly believe what they were seeing. Their creation, a battleship that had slept for decades, was now fully awake and engaged in combat without direct orders. It moved like a living being, thinking, adapting, and responding with instinctive accuracy. Some whispered in awe, others remained silent, unable to comprehend the scale of what was happening. For the first time, they truly understood that Leviathan was not just a machine. It was a guardian, a sentinel, and now a weapon of immense power. The alien fleet, realizing that conventional tactics were failing, attempted to retreat, but Leviathan anticipated even this maneuver. The battleship's AI calculated escape trajectories, potential regroup points, and defensive vulnerabilities. It fired controlled bursts to disable engines and navigation systems on fleeing ships, ensuring they could not regroup easily. The aliens began to understand a terrifying truth. Leviathan was not just powerful, it was smart. Every attack, every defensive move was calculated to maximize effectiveness while minimizing unnecessary destruction. As the battle raged on, Leviathan continued to assess and adapt. It was learning faster than the aliens could comprehend, predicting moves before they happened, and striking with unmatched precision. Its energy fields flared, illuminating the surrounding space with bursts of controlled light. Weapon systems aligned seamlessly, and hidden defenses activated in a synchronized pattern that was almost artistic in its execution. The alien fleet, though advanced, found themselves outmatched, not just in firepower but in strategy. Back on Earth, the tension in the monitoring stations was palpable. Engineers and military personnel watched live feeds of the battle, their hearts pounding. They had always known Leviathan was extraordinary, but seeing it in action against a real threat was overwhelming. Every pulse of energy, every shield flare, every precise strike reinforced a singular truth. Humanity had built something extraordinary, a machine capable of defending the planet against threats that once seemed unimaginable. The aliens, now desperate, attempted coordinated strikes to disable Leviathan's primary systems. They targeted energy conduits, shield generators, and weapon platforms, but the AI had already anticipated these strategies. It redirected power, reinforced critical systems, and countered attacks before they could cause lasting damage. The fleet's confidence continued to erode, replaced by fear and uncertainty. They had underestimated the machine, and in doing so they had underestimated the species that built it. For the humans observing the battle, there was a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. They had witnessed Leviathan awaken, defend itself, and demonstrate capabilities far beyond anything they had imagined. It was more than a battleship. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, resilience, and determination. And though the battle was not yet over, one fact was clear. Earth had a guardian, one that would fight with precision, intelligence, and relentless determination if threatened. As the confrontation reached its peak, Leviathan maintained control of the engagement. The alien fleet was battered, their confidence shattered, and their systems partially disabled. They had learned too late that they were facing not a relic, but a sentinel, a guardian built not just to survive, but to protect. Every strike Leviathan had made was measured, precise, and purposeful. The message was clear. Any force that threatened Earth would face the full power of a civilization that refused to be subdued. The battle began to wind down, though the tension remained. Leviathan, fully operational and aware, allowed the surviving alien ships to retreat rather than destroying them completely. Its objective was not destruction for its own sake, but defense, deterrence, and the establishment of a clear boundary. From orbit, humans watched as the alien fleet disengaged, retreating into the darkness of space, their confidence shattered and their curiosity tempered by fear. And on Earth, a quiet sense of triumph filled the monitoring stations. Leviathan had defended itself, defended the planet, and demonstrated capabilities that no human or alien could ignore. The machine had proven that it was more than metal and circuitry. It was a guardian, a sentinel, and a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. Its systems gradually stabilized, returning to a state of watchful readiness, awaiting the next potential threat, ready to protect the world it had been designed to defend. For the aliens, the lesson was unforgettable. They had scanned, prodded, and tested what they believed was a relic, only to awaken a force that exceeded their understanding. Across the galaxy, the name L.
After the retreat of the alien fleet, a quiet tension filled the vastness of space. The stars above Earth twinkled without noticing, but those who had witnessed the confrontation were forever changed. The aliens who had approached with confidence and curiosity now struggled to comprehend what they had faced. The fleet's commanders, once confident in their superior technology, were forced to reconsider everything they believed about humanity. They had scanned Earth expecting weakness, and instead, they had awoken something they could barely comprehend. In the fleet's command centers, chaos replaced certainty. Analysts frantically combed through every data packet captured from the encounter. Shields, weapons, energy patterns, all had behaved in ways that defied logic. Every movement Leviathan had made, every countermeasure deployed, was too precise, too coordinated, and too intelligent to be a simple machine. The alien scientists and strategists struggled to find an explanation. Their advanced systems had failed to predict the AI's actions. They had never encountered a weapon that seemed to anticipate, adapt, and learn almost as if it were alive. The realization spread quickly through the fleet. Leviathan was more than a battleship. It was a machine that carried the essence of its creators. It had absorbed not just the technological knowledge of humanity, but also the strategic instincts, the adaptive thinking, and even the subtle intuition that came from centuries of survival. It did not act blindly. It did not act randomly. Every move was calculated, deliberate, and effective. The aliens began to understand that this was not just defense, it was a reflection of the human mind, encoded into a mechanical form that could act faster, think faster, and endure far beyond any human's limitations. As they transmitted the data back to their homeworld, the full extent of their miscalculation became clear. The analysts compared Leviathan's capabilities against their entire fleet, and the numbers were staggering. Even a full strike from all ships combined could not guarantee success. The battle had already proven that. Leviathan had absorbed attacks, countered effectively, and disabled multiple ships with precision, all while remaining largely intact. It was not simply a weapon of destruction. It was a sentinel, a guardian designed to preserve life through the perfect combination of power, intelligence, and strategy. Across the galaxy, news of the encounter spread among those civilizations who had access to the fleet's records. The name Leviathan began to circulate in whispers. It was a machine built by humans, yes, but one that represented the species itself, its ingenuity, its resilience, and its capacity to survive. Those who studied the reports were astounded. They had expected a primitive world, one that might be easily subdued or ignored. Instead, they faced a civilization capable of creating a force that could challenge fleets of advanced ships and respond to threats with an intelligence that rivaled their own. The aliens were forced to acknowledge a simple truth: humanity was not to be underestimated. Their machines reflected not just technical skill, but also a deeper understanding of strategy, risk, and survival. Every maneuver Leviathan had made was a reflection of human thinking applied in a mechanical form. They had faced a species that had taken its scars, its struggles, and its history and transformed them into power. The realization was both humbling and terrifying. On Earth, humans monitored Leviathan with a mixture of relief and awe. They had watched their creation engage with an advanced alien fleet, and it had performed beyond every expectation. The Battleship had defended itself and the planet without human input, following principles encoded decades ago. Its actions demonstrated not just raw power, but also judgment, restraint, and purpose. Engineers, scientists, and former military officers knew that the world had witnessed something extraordinary, a force that represented the very best of human capability and determination. Leviathan itself had settled into a state of watchful readiness. Its AI continued to monitor the approaching signals of the alien fleet, analyzing the retreat, calculating potential future threats, and maintaining shields and weapons systems at optimal levels. The ship was alive in a way that no human had anticipated when it was first built. It was not reckless, nor was it bound by immediate orders. It acted with the discipline and foresight of a species that had always struggled to survive against overwhelming odds. In that, Leviathan was uniquely human. The aliens, meanwhile, began to reinterpret every encounter they had with humanity. Battles, conflicts, and even minor skirmishes on Earth's surface were now understood in a different light. Humanity had always faced threats far greater than itself, often surviving against impossible odds. Leviathan was the culmination of that survival instinct, a machine that carried not only weapons, but also memory, strategy, and instinct. The aliens realized that the human species had turned its vulnerability into strength, and that strength had been encoded into a weapon they had foolishly underestimated. Across communications channels, the alien fleet debated their next move. They could attempt another engagement, but the risks had become clear. Leviathan had proven that it could defend itself against overwhelming odds and that it acted with intelligence and restraint. Any future attack would be met with precision and foresight. The costs would be catastrophic. And so the decision was made: the fleet would withdraw entirely, avoiding further conflict, and transmit warnings to their homeworld about the nature of Earth and its defenses. For humanity, the encounter marked a turning point. Leviathan had demonstrated that Earth was not vulnerable, that it possessed the means to defend itself against forces far beyond what anyone had imagined. The small team of humans observing the battle knew that the world would never be the same. The secret of Leviathan was no longer just a relic of the past. It was a living testament to human ingenuity and resilience, a reminder that survival required foresight, intelligence, and courage. The alien fleet's retreat sent ripples across the galaxy. For other civilizations, the story of Leviathan became a symbol of caution. Scanning a planet thought to be primitive could awaken forces beyond comprehension. The lesson was simple but profound. Humanity was not defenseless. They had built something extraordinary, and that creation reflected the very essence of their species. To challenge them now was to risk awakening a power that could not be fully understood or controlled. Back on Earth, Leviathan remained in orbit, fully operational and silent to the casual observer. Its sensors swept the skies, monitoring potential threats, and its energy systems maintained optimal readiness. The humans who had witnessed its first engagement understood the stakes. They had seen the full scope of the machine's capabilities, and they knew that humanity had created something that could protect the planet for generations. It was a force of both awe and reassurance, a guardian that acted with the intelligence and purpose of the species that had built it. The lessons learned from the encounter would resonate through human society as well. Scientists and engineers began to consider the implications of creating autonomous systems capable of independent thought and action. Military strategists revised defensive doctrines, incorporating the knowledge that a single, well-designed machine could change the balance of power in the galaxy. And across all these calculations and plans, one truth remained constant. Leviathan had proven that humanity, even from a small, seemingly fragile planet, could defend itself against forces far beyond its immediate reach. In the aftermath, the alien fleet transmitted warnings to other civilizations. The message was clear. Earth was not a passive world, and Leviathan was a sentinel capable of defending it with overwhelming intelligence and power. Across the stars, whispers of the encounter spread, and civilizations that once considered Earth insignificant began to view it with caution. Humanity had awakened something they had long taken for granted, the full measure of its potential. Embodied in a machine that acted with precision, strategy, and purpose, Leviathan itself continued its watch. The eye had learned from the encounter, integrating every observation, every movement of the alien fleet into its ongoing calculations. It remained vigilant, fully aware of the galaxy around it, and fully prepared to act if necessary. For the humans monitoring the ship, there was comfort in knowing that their creation had succeeded beyond expectation. It was not just a weapon. It was a guardian, a testament to human ingenuity, and a symbol of survival against the odds. And for the aliens, the revelation was complete. They had scanned Earth, they had awoken Leviathan, and they had seen firsthand the intelligence, adaptability, and power of a civilization they had underestimated. Humanity was no longer just a minor species in the galaxy. It was a force capable of defending itself with extraordinary skill. The encounter would shape their perception of humans forever, and the memory of Leviathan would become a warning, a lesson, and a story passed down through fleets and command centers across the stars. The stars above Earth continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles and victories below. But within the silence of space, a new respect had formed. Humanity had revealed its capacity to survive, to defend, and to awaken a power that no alien force could ignore. Leviathan, the awakened sentinel, remained vigilant, embodying the resilience, intelligence, and determination of the species that had built it. And somewhere in the quiet hum of its sigh, the alien fleet had retreated, their confidence shaken and their calculations undone. Space was silent once more, yet the tension lingered like a faint pulse. Leviathan hovered above the planet, its massive hull gleaming under the reflected light of the sun. Its systems had cooled from the first engagement, but its senses remained active, scanning the stars for any movement, any sign of returning threats. The battleship's AI was calm, precise, and fully aware. Every calculation, every observation was stored and analyzed, forming a record of the encounter that would guide its actions for decades to come. On Earth, humans observed Leviathan from monitoring stations, their faces a mix of awe, relief, and disbelief. For years, they had only imagined the capabilities of the battleship. They had trained, tested simulations, and prepared protocols for emergencies, but nothing could compare to the reality of watching it awaken, fight, and emerge victorious. The ship had proven that it was not just a machine, it was an extension of human will, a guardian that understood both strategy and restraint. Its existence had transformed the perception of Earth's place in the galaxy. Leviathan did not act recklessly. I had learned from the first confrontation, absorbing every detail of the alien fleet's behavior, every flaw and strength, and every potential threat vector. The ship's first engagement had been a test, and it had succeeded. Yet it understood that destruction was not the goal. Its mission was defense, deterrence, and the preservation of life. The battleship did not seek to annihilate, but it would act decisively if provoked. Humanity's intentions were mirrored in the machine's behavior: caution, preparedness, and the ability to respond to threats with precision. The aliens, meanwhile, had returned to their homeworld, transmitting warnings and reports of what they had faced. Their fleet had been strong, their technology advanced, yet it had been unable to overcome a single machine. Leviathan had proven itself beyond expectation. Across the galaxy, intelligence reports circulated among other civilizations, creating a ripple effect. The name Leviathan became synonymous with power, strategy, and the unpredictability of humanity. It was no longer a secret weapon. It was a warning, a symbol of deterrence that ensured respect from any who might consider aggression. Leviathans. I calculated the next step. It was not enough to remain silent and hope the aliens understood the message. A clear signal needed to be sent, a communication that was unmistakable and final. Humanity would not strike first, but it would not tolerate unprovoked aggression. The battleship prepared a controlled transmission, broadcasting across multiple frequencies and energy bands. It was not threatening in tone, but it was impossible to ignore. The message carried clarity: Earth was defended. Any hostile action would be met with precision and overwhelming force. Peace depended on recognition of this truth. The transmission reached the alien fleet and their homeworlds. Analysts and leaders observed the message, interpreting it with a mixture of awe and caution. Leviathan's presence, combined with its precise actions and measured communication, created a paradigm shift in how humanity was viewed. No longer were humans a minor species to be ignored or underestimated. They had built something capable of defending the entire planet, capable of responding intelligently, and capable of deterring aggression without unnecessary destruction. The final warning was clear: Earth was protected, and Leviathan would act to ensure its survival. On Earth, humans marveled at the precision and clarity of the battleship's actions. For decades, Leviathan had been a secret, a relic of human ingenuity waiting for the right moment. That moment had come, and the machine had responded perfectly. Engineers and scientists observed its systems, noting the harmony of its AI, the synchronization of its defenses, and the intelligence guiding its decisions. Every action had been deliberate, every calculation accurate, and every outcome a testament to human foresight and creativity. The first humans to witness Leviathan awaken understood the significance. They realized that the battleship was not just a weapon, but a symbol, a representation of what humanity could achieve when ingenuity, determination, and survival instinct combined. Its existence challenged the assumptions of other civilizations and elevated humanity to a new level of respect in the galaxy. For the humans observing, the moment was one of pride and humility. They had created something extraordinary, a force that acted in perfect alignment with human values, yet far beyond human capability. Leviathan continued to monitor the galaxy, scanning for threats, observing energy patterns, and recording potential risks. Its eye was not idle. It calculated contingencies, prepared strategies, and maintained its systems in perfect readiness. The battleship was alive in a sense that no human had ever experienced. Its awareness was continuous, its intelligence adaptive, and its capacity for defense unmatched. Humanity had awakened a sentinel that would protect Earth for generations, ensuring survival against threats that might arise far beyond the planet's orbit. The alien civilizations, observing from afar, adapted their strategies. They recalculated the balance of power, acknowledging the risks of aggression against a species capable of creating Leviathan. Their fleets were redeployed, research efforts refocused, and defensive protocols reconsidered. Humanity had established a deterrent without firing indiscriminately, without causing unnecessary casualties. Leviathan had demonstrated that power combined with intelligence and restraint was a force even advanced civilizations could not ignore. Humans on Earth began to understand the broader implications as well. The existence of Leviathan and its successful First engagement reshaped military strategies, scientific exploration, and even philosophical perspectives. The planet was no longer defenseless. Humanity's reach, influence, and capacity for survival had been dramatically reinforced. The battleship was not just a tool. It was a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and foresight. People began to see a future where Earth could protect itself, explore space responsibly, and interact with other civilizations on more equal terms. Leviathan's AI continued to analyze, refine, and adapt. Every energy spike from distant systems, every unusual movement in space, and every signal was logged and interpreted. The battleship acted as a guardian not only of physical territory but of knowledge, anticipating threats before they became immediate dangers. Humanity had built a machine that mirrored its best qualities: intelligence, caution, adaptability, and the drive to survive against impossible odds. In the quiet hum of its systems, the legacy of human foresight lived on. The aliens, forced to acknowledge the deterrent Leviathan represented, adapted their diplomatic and strategic approaches. Direct attacks on Earth were no longer considered viable. Instead, communication, observation, and cautious engagement became the primary strategies. The first encounter had changed the rules of interaction. Humanity had not declared war yet. It had established a clear boundary. The planet was protected, the machine was ready, and any violation would meet calculated resistance. Leviathan had established peace through strength, intelligence, and precision. On Earth, humans reflected on the encounter and its lessons. They realized that survival depended not just on raw power but on foresight, strategy, and intelligence. Leviathan embodied these lessons, acting autonomously yet in perfect harmony with the values of the species that created it. Engineers and scientists studied the battleship's AI not to control it, but to understand its capabilities, learn from its strategies, and ensure that humanity could continue to build and maintain systems of protection for the future. As days turned to weeks, Leviathan remained vigilant. Its sensors scanned for any signs of returning threats, monitoring communications, energy patterns, and potential anomalies. Humanity had demonstrated the capacity to awaken extraordinary power when needed, but the battleship also served as a reminder that preparation, intelligence, and patience were just as important as action. The machine's continued readiness reassured those on Earth that the planet was safe, and that any future threat would be met with unparalleled precision. The aliens, humbled by the encounter, shared their experiences across their civilizations. Leviathan became a legend, a story passed among fleets, academies, and strategic councils. They spoke of a species that had created a machine capable of independent thought, intelligence, and restraint. Humanity's influence had grown not through conquest, but through ingenuity, preparedness, and the awakening of a force that had lain dormant for decades. The name Leviathan carried weight, caution, and respect throughout the galaxy. On Earth, humans continued to observe Leviathan, maintaining communication channels and monitoring systems. The battleship had become more than a secret project. It was a guardian, a symbol, and a force that ensured the survival of the planet. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel worked together to study its actions, learn from its intelligence, and prepare for any eventuality. Humanity had faced the unknown and emerged stronger, its sentinel standing watch over the planet with unwavering vigilance. Leviathan, as presence, was a reminder of human resilience. Its eye had acted decisively, demonstrating strategy, judgment, and precision. It had delivered the final warning to the galaxy without unnecessary destruction, establishing a balance of power that ensured peace through deterrence. The battleship's AC